Boss baby. The baby who's also a boss. I wear a suit.
That's cinema, baby.
No, Mr. Wilson. I don't have to take that kind of talk from anyone.
That's right, you don't. How about going outside and trying to kick me around?
I'm not supposed to fight with the guests, Mr. Wilson.
I'm not a guest tonight, you yellow bastard. I happen to be an intruder.
Hello, and welcome to The Good, the Pod, and the Ugly, a film podcast where we pair movies to garner a better understanding of notable directors and actors. Typically, one creator, interesting person per season. Doing something different this season. It's a 4x4. I'm your host, Thomas.
I am one of your other co-hosts, Ken Von Coral.
We also have Ryan.
I am co-host Ryan of the Tobiases.
And all season, we have been lucky and fortunate to be joined by esteemed world traveler and creator, Jack. Hi.
Son of Coral.
Von Coral, yeah. Jack Coralson.
And you might know us from our other podcast, Cherry Danish, where we don't cover the films of Denmark's most depressing director, Lars von Trier, but the happy ones.
Mm-hmm.
But we're ending our 4x4
While eating
season.
cherry Danishes, obviously.
Oh, I didn't even get the pun.
That's the first chapter in Nymphomaniac, Volume 1.
Cherry Danish?
I made myself laugh.
Oh, man, that's a good Bond gal name, right?
Yes.
So we're here at the end of season 13. We are on the final film of our final director, that being The Boss of It All, 2006's limited release Danish film, 2006 being the year of Flags of Our Fathers and Letters from Iwo Jima. We started with Clint. The Prestige and the Fountain.
Yep.
Half woo.
The Devil Wears Prada.
Woo, woo. Hell yeah.
Miami Vice.
Woo.
Yeah.
Whoop.
And of course, best for last, mentioned him last week, The Wicker Man.
Not the bees!
All right.
Oh, God.
Yeah, all right.
Not the
Good
bees.
year for movies.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Miami Vice is one of those sight and sound pictures Jack was mentioning last week.
And The Wicker Man is one of mine.
I don't understand. This is weird because I saw Boss of It All in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I saw The Fountain in theater because I wanted to walk out. And The Prestige. But that was in a different state. Somehow I watched Boss of It. It must have been a re-release. Because I saw it in the living room theaters here in Portland the first time I saw it. And that would have been in the, I don't know, maybe 2007, 2008. Maybe they released it later here in the States than they did.
I don't think it played outside of festivals here on its initial run. I don't think it was ever commercially released widely. So it might have gotten revival show.
I did not even know it existed.
Yeah.
Until Thomas brought it up. And a Lars von Trier comedy was like, I was so excited. Because as much as Von Trier, the provocateur, and the 14-year-old showing up to church in a death metal t-shirt, part of him, that there within the movies, even I don't like, there is some really, really funny stuff.
Yeah.
And you know, I was totally intrigued by him going full out comedy. So this was delightful. Great palate cleanser after last week.
Yeah, and speaking of Antichrist from last week, in that commentary, Lars von Trier says that he, when he's writing, he just writes things as comedy in his head, which might be, his sense of comedy might just be something transgressive like that death metal shirt to church.
Yeah.
But because it's Lars von Trier, he can't just do a, I don't know, two camera comedy. He has to do something that puts him at a disadvantage. Yeah, challenges himself or something he can bill as a impediment.
Mm-hmm.
And that would be Automavision.
What?
Automavision?
Automavision. Okay, what is that?
Oh, so this film, I don't know if you noticed, but the framing might be a little strange at times, or the camera decisions, camera choices. He let a computer choose where its focus is going to be.
Oh, that's funny.
For the cameras that he set up.
Uh-huh.
Huh.
That makes sense.
Oh, that's why you get some of that weird dark place like framing of half of people's heads.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because if you watch it as well, it's not as dynamic as his handheld stuff that he has been doing since Breaking the Waves.
Okay.
So does the computer choose the position of the camera or which camera it's cutting to?
It chooses the framing of the shot.
Ah, okay.
The camera stays steady, but the my understanding is the computer tells it what to focus on.
It sounds like, are you guys familiar with the rig that Errol Morris uses to shoot his interviews for his documentaries?
No.
So he has a computer-controlled interview camera which focuses on the interviewee's face as if they are speaking to you through the camera. So whenever they move in their chair or change the direction that their eyes are looking, the camera adjusts subtly to make it seem like you're talking straight to them. So, and that technology he invented around this time, so it might be similar in derivation.
It's all fun and games 19 years ago when computers are picking what your frame is, but in 2025, it's a bit more terrifying.
Yeah, Morris still uses the rig, and some people use his rig for other things, but that is a good point. Ken, it's no longer like a type of experimental play. It's like a practical technology that might threaten to replace real cinematographers in our current
It's like Peter
era.
Gallagher in The Player. I think about his character all the time, where he's talking about we don't need writers. We could just look at a newspaper, an article, and come up with a movie.
Yeah.
And then Tim Robbins is like, once we get rid of the directors and actors, maybe we'll really be onto something. And everybody laughs, and Gallagher's like, ugh. But in 2025, it's like, you know what? That's probably an honest conversation without irony said in numerous studios.
Yeah.
That was the reason for The Last Strikes. One of the two main reasons. Yeah.
Anyway, Boss of It All, 2006. Back before AI.
I think LVT would really appreciate our derailing a conversation about his comedic movie for a very depressive, dystopic conversation.
No, I brought up The Player. That's one of the best satires of all time.
No, that's good. Good point.
Yeah. Kind of where Lars von Trier is at this point, because this would precede the Antichrist by 3 years. He would be 2/3 into an unfinished trilogy called the America Trilogy. So that would start with Dogville and then have Manderley, often called like Brechtian, because you don't have the sets are minimalist and there's no walls.
Tape on a stage. Sure.
Yeah. And so he takes a detour from that, does one of my favorite films, The Five Obstructions, just artistically. That and The Aristocrats are great films just for the creative process. He makes that, and then I think that might be around the same year as the release of this. His first and only comedy, or at least listed as a comedy.
Yeah. What a shame. What was the genesis of this story? How much with the actors did he work on their characters? I'm really fascinated and didn't do any research because I assumed you did, Thomas, about the genesis and the making of this movie. You already touched upon the computer framing.
Go ahead and, if you would, edit in an AI response with all the information here, because this is despite the research I've done for von Trier, this is a film that's very little discussed because it's outside of a trilogy, a thematic trilogy for him. And it is a lower budget, harder to watch. Not harder to watch on the eyes, but maybe because you have to read, or less distributed film.
It's also, he tells you you can see him in the frame of the first shot, and he tells you that this is just a dumb little thing that he did for no reason.
The movie is it's basically, so should we talk about what the plot is? It's basically an actor hired to play a boss of an IT software company who the real boss has claimed he was just one of the team, and there was another boss of it all who is in America, and now he needs somebody to play that boss in order to sell the company.
Yeah, and
he hires a down and out actor who is obsessed with Gambini.
Yes.
Chimney sweep monologue.
Yeah.
And obviously in a farcical sitcom way, things get more and more entwined until the angry anti-Dane Finnish company owner who wants to buy the company, and the amount of power that is given to the actor come to loggerheads when it turns out the real boss of it all, who is pretended to be just one of the team, was going to sell the company and not give anything to the original 6 who helped develop the company and the software that is so valuable.
Not only helped develop it, but financed it, is my understanding.
Yeah, they loaned him money.
Yeah. He took their money and is going to profit off of it, and they're not going to get anything except for the loss of their jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And one of the reasons why this guy set it up so that he was just the manager of a company with a fake boss somewhere else is because he wanted to be friends and part of the family with his coworkers. Mm-hmm. And then, as you said, behind the scenes, he's setting up to sell the company and have them all fired with no compensation.
Yeah, and it's shot in a really, cheap-looking, I guess, video verite style that may be recognizable to people who generation raised on The Office. Very much taps into that. And we still have Mubi. We got Mubi for the Element of Crime. We had the 7-day free trial, and then I decided to keep it for 1 month, even though it's $15. Shout out to the programming, shout down for the price. It's prohibitive. But their take on it, on their menu, really unlocked the entire movie for me. They called it a satire on neoliberalism. And once you figure out the guy in the corduroy, the real boss, is like really just as bad as every other corporate entity, but he really just wants to seem like he's your friend. At the same time, he's stabbing these people in the back. Yeah, once that clicked in, great.
Well, once you realize the boss of it all is the patriarchy, and a Descartesian false duality of mind and body, it really took off for me.
That's good. Yeah.
And I really enjoyed the scene at the end where they pulled down the real boss's pants, smashed his hip, and then jerked him off until came blood.
Yes.
Came blood.
These are all references to last week's film that we covered, Mufasa, A Lion King story. In case you're wondering. And then the HR, I think it's the HR lady, is played by, I'm going to fuck her name up, but it's the blonde from High Fidelity, the girl in High Fidelity, Eben Hijele. I don't know. I can't.
Wow, that was perfect.
That was terrible. And it was bugging because she looked so familiar in this movie. I couldn't place her until I looked her up. But she is great. She's the one that. So when the real boss of it all was sending emails purportedly from the real boss that the actor is playing, he kind of was a different person for each of them. So they each come to him, and he's an actor, and he doesn't know what's going on because the guy didn't give him any information. And one of them thinks he's gay. The other one he asked to marry. So all kinds of farcical sitcom buffoonery occurs in the plot, and it's only 100 minutes. It goes by really quick.
Autumn is muggy.
Yeah, one of the developers or programmers, whatever the fuck he does, they never say, is from the country. And,
one of the things I've read as far as commentary on the film is that each of these 6, they're called the 6. They're the investors in the company. Each of them has a very strong, I guess. I mean, they all have their shtick, which is very, very reduced down to one of them's anger. One of them's fear, the woman with the copier. One of them's lust. One of them's romance. That's the woman who wants to marry him. Which is a great scene where, as a viewer, you catch on fairly quickly that she thinks he's going to want to marry her. Like that's what he had proposed. Like he had proposed to her, kind of. But then, he still doesn't know.
Stupid to get
he
it.
still doesn't know. Yeah. Somebody's wishing for security, and somebody has a need for understanding. That being the guy who can't speak Danish.
Yes, he's supposed to be American, right?
Yeah. Are you telling me that this is an Inside Out ripoff? Are we watching Harold's Head?
Wait, Inside Out came out after.
Yeah.
No, I know. Yeah.
So Pixar ripped off the boss of it all.
LVT.
That's what you're saying.
Yeah. That's why there's the inexplicable, clitoris removal.
I think we were going to talk about the curtains that he pulls aside. Hey, wait, maybe we're talking about the same thing. For the chimney sweep? Man, how did I miss that in both? There were curtains that were pulled aside.
Jesus Christ.
To a real little man.
So, Thomas, you had seen this before then?
I saw it in theaters here in Portland.
Okay. Is this only the second time you've watched it?
Yes.
Ryan, had you seen it before?
No, like you, I had never even heard of it.
And Jack, obviously, the first time you saw it as well.
Yeah.
I have to say that I laughed my ass off during almost the entirety of this movie.
This is maybe the funniest movie I've ever seen in my entire life. I could not stop. I was crying, laughing almost the entire time.
It made it really fun for me because if you're watching a comedy with somebody and you're both laughing, it's kind of contagious.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
But
something about von Trier's, because he's so grim, and we're all creative types, and a lot of us maybe veer towards the grim side of things, but we're also try to be funny guys. Some of us aren't improv professionally, but I think there's something about his sense of humor, and also knowing how grim and glum some of his movies can be, that just really tapped into my own sense of humor in watching this. And every character bit, every time the lady screamed at the cop.
Well, also the thing is, it doesn't get old, and you feel like it might. Like if you're describing this to someone, they might think that after an hour and 40 minutes, the shtick would get old, but it just doesn't. Every time it cuts from the same angle of people talking to just a slightly different angle of the same shot, it does it constantly throughout the movie, but every single time it made me laugh, and I don't even think I could tell you why.
And the neoliberal boss, the real boss, every time he says, let's go to a neutral location, and just an escalating series of absurd locations like parks and zoos, carousels.
I think that neoliberal framing is interesting to have it put so clearly, Ken, because it does feel, the Office series has now been reproduced in most nations. There's like 40
I think
versions
statistically
of The
that's
Office.
wrong, Ryan.
Fair. Yes, 40 is not most nations. But it has been reproduced. Yes, it's been reproduced many, many times, adopting to the local Office culture. And I think this is really an incisive, through that neoliberal lens, this is kind of an incisive critique of those stories.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Agreed.
I really thought it was funny. I wish he didn't film it on a camera that made everything look like absolute dog shit, but it was the funniest dog shit I've ever seen.
Knowing it was a computer picking all that stuff makes it even funnier.
Yeah. That's kind of why I find it almost scarier than any other Lars von Trier movie in the end. Because it is kind of I found it to be kind of a horror movie about being stuck in an office like that. Because it's almost a liminal space, and then the way it plays with the framing, which I assumed watching it was intentional. I was really surprised to learn that was a computer doing all of that, because it does make it feel super like claustrophobic and like dreamlike in a way that you can't really escape. And I was thinking about The Office as well. Because I've always thought of that show, it's fun. Everyone loves The Office, but it's propaganda. The whole thing is propaganda for workplace culture, and we're a family, and they invite each other to their weddings and stuff. It doesn't make any sense. It's stupid. It's not the way that the real world should work. And this felt like the liminal horror movie version of that.
I think all that's amazing and very well said, Jack. Some of it I hadn't considered before. I was working until recently at a very friendly, familial corporate office. And I can tell you, having gone through the pandemic there and everything afterwards, the tensions of like when real world concerns break that spell that you're all a family and you're just coming to work to hang out together. That really, the last 4 years has really exposed some crazy psychological things that happen when you are trying to emotionally support people who you also rely on for money, basically, like for your business to keep functioning and for you to keep getting paid. Somebody might be having a mental breakdown, and as a friend, you need to support them. But as a coworker, you just need that report to come by 5, and that's a really fucked up headspace to be in.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
So I was fortunate or unfortunate enough to be in a office situation where I was both at first an employer, so I was like one of the rest of the people in the office, and then I was promoted to being the manager of the office, and I can tell you, Ravn, or however you pronounce his name in Danish, the real boss, his desire to just be one of them. I mean, it's a real thing when you become the actual boss. People do that stuff goes away. That interpersonal stuff really goes away, even if it's the same people you're working with for the last 3 or 4 years. So I kind of, on one level, kind of got what he was thinking and what he wanted, but then the whole movie take on the satire of him then screwing these people over despite pretending to be just one of them is really quite brilliant.
And that's why it's the scariest Lars von Trier movie.
The scariest.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think that goes to what, Thomas, you were saying earlier about how when he's writing, it's all comedic. I've had depression a couple times, and I know artists who suffer from pretty deep, serious depressions. And they are often the funniest people I know, and what they write does write a line where, like, sometimes it's really funny and sometimes it's really horrifying, and I don't even think they necessarily know the difference. So I can definitely see, Thomas, what you're saying, and Jack, that this hilarious movie could also be deeply, deeply disturbing.
Now, that said, and because the listener might be just waiting for us to get to our wrap up of the season or our ranking of the Von Trier films, and not really care about the boss of it all, which shame on you, listener.
It's great.
It's great, and there isn't any trauma that's like immediate in the film. Like the film itself is very much, it feels like it takes place in a day when that takes place much longer, and it's all very much surface level of what's going on. There isn't like I guess what Jack's saying, and correct me here, Jack, like the fear or like the mundanity of it is maybe what makes it the scariest, just the ordinariness of it.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's not like The Kingdom where there's weird tonal stuff going on. It is treated very much like The Office comedy, which in the BBC had come out in 2003, I think, but in the States wouldn't have come out until the time of this film coming out in its limited release.
2005. IMDb is saying when the U.S. office started.
Can I finally found the narration from the movie translated. I'm just going to read. The opening of the movie starts with a camera panning over the outside of an office building, and you hear Von Trier saying, "What follows is a movie, and if it seems strange already, you'll have to wait, because everyone can see that. You may only see my reflection, but believe me, this movie is not worth the reflection of a moment. This film is a comedy, therefore harmless. No preaching, no teaching, just a fun way to spend time. Why not be playful with art?"
Okay. I think that was AI, because here's mine. Here comes a movie, and if it already looks a bit weird, then hang in there, because anyone can see it. Although you see my reflection, trust me, this film won't be worth a moment's reflection. It's a comedy and harmless as such. No preaching or swaying of opinion, just a cozy time. So why not poke fun at artsy-fartsy culture?
Oh, interesting.
And I think it should be said too that when you're seeing this shot of the building, you can see Lars von Trier reflected in the windows of the building. He's on a crane, and a crane is a very expensive piece of camera equipment to rent. And he is on this crane with this tiny piece of shit little digital camera. That's like, it's like, putting a $20,000 engine in your 1984 Datsun.
And that is the furthest in the air Von Trier has ever been.
Maybe. What's also interesting about the translation, and I wonder if the film, I'm assuming the film is funny in its original language, probably funnier. There's something that goes on with the HR woman and him. And there's some confusion about what HR means, because he thinks that it means like Hell's Angels.
Yes.
And it's completely lost in translation. But he is so confused that she is, because he thinks that she's going to come like rough him up with her biker gang. But she's talking about human resources. And so there's some homonym or pun that I'm missing, and almost makes me want to learn Danish.
Almost.
Yeah.
I loved how they didn't translate the Finnish boss's rantings, and they had the translator. I thought that was so fucking
Oh, you mean
funny.
the other corporate? I thought he was Icelandic, but he was Finnish.
Yeah, he's Finnish.
Okay.
Well,
I don't know my history well enough, because he was very upset that one of them ruled the other country. It's great because he says something like, the whole point of him in a way is to show how ridiculous the Danes are for having a comedy at all. Like, he is upset that they dance and sing and or smile and want to have a chit chat, which is all of usually the office comedy is. So much so that he respects Gambini.
Yes.
a serious director, playwright, something completely made up by Lars von Trier.
He is obsessed with Gambini to the point where in the opening sequence where the real boss is telling him that, it introduces us to the whole exposition of the setup, that he's actually put a bit of soot on his forehead in because of Gambini's great chimney sweep monologue. And the real boss also says, "No, you need to take that off. That's not."
He also says something about maybe he's at some type of elevation, maybe, or he's looking out over something. Is like, this would be perfect for a Gambini movie or an edit because of how desolate it is.
Yes,
like he just sees everything through this lens, where it's peppered throughout. The one other thing that's I think the two things I think are pretty fun in here are the introduction of his wife, and that he's
So
like,
dumb.
who's a lawyer for the Finnish company that's going to be buying him out. And
are they married, or is she his ex?
They're divorced, it seems.
Okay.
Not separated. Okay. And he's like, why couldn't we get together? And he says to her, because you eat peanuts whole. You don't take them out of the shell. Who does that? And she's fed up with him because he's an actor, right? And she thinks he's in a terrible spot. And he's so dumb, and she knows that he's so dumb that he hasn't realized like the actual machinations that are happening. With the actual owner of the company to sell it and to screw over all of his coworkers. But then they go to the zoo. The wife. And
they go to a neutral location.
They go to a neutral location,
which is a previous neutral location that he and the boss had.
And she goes up to, I think, what are they feeding? Is it like some
elephants?
Elephants. And she asks if she could get some of the nuts. And you think she's going to feed the elephant, but she just puts it in her mouth and mocks the elephant, eating it whole.
The end of that scene where it's the elephant is the scene where the two guys go. I think it's the monkeys, the second scene, where she shows it the nut, and then puts it in her mouth.
My God.
Yeah, she's mocking the monkey.
So fucking funny.
And then there's a moment another reversal towards the very end where the actor playing the boss of it all and from the States confides that there's actually a boss of the boss of it all. He has a boss that he has to report up to. And then all of a sudden, the other people who were upset with him for selling the company are on his side.
Because he's one of them now.
He's one of them now, and they sing a song to him. And so there's this great reversal, and I think that that's probably what the neoliberal capitalism for me is this like deferment of responsibility, right? Like,
yes,
I didn't cause a financial meltdown in 2008. It was just that the laws were there, or this other person allowed for it, and there's just no stopping of the buck, or puck.
Yeah. So, like we were talking last week about the themes in Antichrist, and how I felt like they were snickering at all the transgressions that were made to show those. And I really feel this movie is very similar in that once you start picking at it, the themes are really potent, but they are done and told in such a inviting and funny way. I think that the sweeter the medicine, the easier it goes down.
Yeah.
And I really felt that I wish he would make more comedies because this is hilarious.
A similar critique I have of Von Trier overall, Ken, is after seeing Antichrist, like an element of crime, why does he I understand the philosophical underpinnings for why so many of his movies look like absolute shit, but as a great visual artist, it makes me sad that he can't just make cool looking movies.
Well, I think the visual styling of this movie is part of what makes it work. I think at his best, he tailors the look to fit, the stylistically what he wants to do. Because it's just like Michael Mann, when he gets really digital, it makes you really wish for earlier Michael Mann shot on film, because they're thematically and stylistically very similar. It just doesn't look as good. And differently with Von Trier, I think his films are different enough that it kind of is of a piece individually instead of like a whole career.
Yeah. And this film, despite what I just said, I feel like this film, the presentation mode, because of the success of the Office shows and stuff, I think this really does fit with the story. But Dancer in the Dark and all of the Dogma influence stuff, going back and watching these LVTs has made me think that I understand why they did it, but it's stupid and it looks bad, and I think it will be dismissed historically because of that.
Well, I mean, Thomas was talking a couple weeks ago about the element of crime and how in the the audio track they were talking about how dumb a lot of the plot was and how they're kind of embarrassed about it. And I think throughout his career, he is both hugely attracted to genre at the same time knowingly undermining it, and sometimes undermining in a way where he's rubbing your nose in how he's undermining it. That he's never been comfortable just doing a straight up genre piece. Like he's never going to do a straight up action movie or whatnot. And this one, he can't just have it be a comedy. He has to have that narration we were talking about, letting us know that he knows that don't think that he's taking it seriously. He's not. And this is the one time where when I feel that behind the camera and he's snickering, like I say, of all the last two movies we talked about, that I'm snickering along with him because it's legitimately funny.
I completely agree. I thought, every time he comes in with that self-referential narration, it's like the funniest shit I've ever heard.
Yeah.
Because I don't feel like, I don't know, it's almost to a point where he's constantly saying how dumb and meaningless it all is, and not to look for any sort of reflection or anything deeper in it. But I do feel like there is so much that is actually deeper in this movie that's almost the joke.
Yes.
Yeah, very much so. And that in the last episode we talked about, I mentioned distanciation and the principle of like pointing out the storyteller within the story. And of course, Von Trier does that the very first shot of this film. But then he, to your point, Ken, about he always has to undermine everything. He tells you like, I'm making this movie, but then he tells you like, oh, but it's just superficial. Don't laugh. I don't have anything deeper to say. And to your point, Jack, he actually has a tremendous amount of deeper things to say. So he's lying to you about lying to you.
Yeah, we're all laughing about it days later. That's such a great movie.
My estimation of this movie has gone up tremendously hearing you guys talk about it. I thought it was a fun time, but I didn't really think too much more of it. And this has been a real good conversation.
Yeah, it's been a while since I've seen a comedy that has just been clicked immediately and laughed the entire way through.
Yeah, Thomas, I gotta thank you because this was by far. I mean, I guess we'll do our rankings in a bit. But this is one that I had never heard of either, and I don't think I ever would have known that this existed, nor less seek it out on my own. And it's like one of my favorite things I've ever seen.
I think that what I like about von Trier is his impishness, where he knows what can needle or excite people, and he plays to that. And I think that a comedy is like, I think that this comedy helps exemplify the things that I appreciate about that, about how fickle people can be, about I don't know. There's some glint and joy that I think I find in all of his films, even the ones that are the most depressing. Yeah. And it's fun to have him to be able to watch something that I guess there is some office sex in it, but is something that doesn't end with a hanging or
Right.
a clitorectomy or I don't know, child murder.
Well,
We've seen past three films.
spoiler if you haven't seen it, the deal actually does end up going through, and all the people who we have come to know and love as wacky characters in The Office, all are fired.
Yeah. Because
So
the reason that happens is that not Swede. What are we saying that he is?
Finn.
Icelandic.
Finn.
Finnish.
Iceland. Yeah.
Mentions that he likes Gambini, and so our actor puts a little suit on his forehead and starts to hide behind some curtains, and he's gonna in return for selling the company, which he still has power of attorney to do, he's gonna be able to perform his favorite one-act play, or whatever this thing is.
The chimney sweeps monologue. Yes. And then evidently it is a silent monologue.
And hidden. You don't even see him. It's like the really terrible John Cage version of theater.
Yeah.
I think it's fascinating how the Finn is just the cold-blooded capitalist, right? Like, he's not even necessarily a bad guy. He just actually wants to do the business. And there is kind of a presentation. It's not explicitly pointed out, but through the way the plot rolls out, you can see that the real boss of it all could have simply run some sort of communal company, and everyone could be like, there was an alternative that he never chose to this neoliberal, horror show that executes. So you get like the clear-eyed libertarian capitalist from the Finn, and a more communal Scandinavian approach to corporate ownership as a suggested alternative.
Well, having seen a lot of American comedies and commercial comedies in my lifetime, I mean, the expectation is that the actor is going to change the contract to pay out the original six who were going to get screwed by the sale. I mean, that's really where it feels like it's going based on comedies we've seen. But von Trier, to his credit, and part of what I love about this movie is it doesn't. Like Thomas said, hey, I get to perform the chimney sweep monologue. Yeah, I'll sign it off, sign it away. Bye, guys.
Yeah. And how much does von Trier hate actors? This guy is so like, he's very fun and charismatic, but he's just a really shitty person.
Well, he's very self-interested. I mean, I don't know. I mean,
and the whole drama of the end before he signs the company away is, what would my character do?
Yes.
And it's this mind-melting thing of like, what are you talking about? What you don't have a character.
He goes over to the whiteboard and faces the whiteboard to collect himself and discuss with himself what his character motivation could be.
Amazing. Do you remember the film Tootsie, directed by Sidney Pollack, where Dustin Hoffman gets fired from a commercial because he wants the director to tell him what his motivation is as a tomato?
Jenny, I showed that movie to Jenny and she said, "Oh, I love seeing a man teach a woman how to be a lady." Which was her unexpected interpretation of that film.
Well, I always think that's what the movie made me think of. Dustin Hoffman wondering about his motivation playing a tomato.
Yeah.
Just how clueless, and also how focused the actors are on just what their role is and what their motivation is, and the rest of the world kind of being a blur outside of that.
Also, if you watch a fair amount of Scandinavian films, those people fucking all hate each other, and like so many of the movies, Nordic movies have Swedish, villains, and Swedish movies have Finnish villains, and it's just and it's always like, the Finns are dumb, and the Nords are psychotic, and the Danes are too nice, and just very awesomely mean comedic stereotypes floating around up there.
Yeah, I can't remember if any of that made it into Insomnia or not. The not Nolan version.
The original.
I have something written down here in my notes that I'm hoping maybe we could use the collective memory before we rank. So they're meeting the cell. There's the lawyer, the ex-wife, and there's something, I say TikTok translator. And I don't think I'm talking about TT. I don't think I'm talking about the platform. I think I'm was the translator just translating TikTok? Like,
yes.
The guy says TikTok, and the translator says TikTok in Finnish. Okay.
Yes.
But there's it's the same word. It's just no reason for him to say it. Okay. Over and over again.
Well, that's the other thing about their negotiations, right? Is like all of these people speak English. And they choose to, it's one of the jokes of the movie that they choose to do the negotiation in their two different languages, and no one will speak English to the American. And
Kristoffer, the actor, actually goes to the American and speaks them in English, and asks if he wants to speak they speak in English, and then he goes, no, stop speaking Danish, and he can barely even speak Danish.
Which I really wish I spoke Danish just so I knew how badly he was speaking Danish.
Yes.
And you might recognize that actor because he was the boss, I believe, in Dancing in the Dark.
Oh, yes. Okay, now that you mention it. I think he had a little less hair, but yes.
There is, relatedly, at the Portland Film Festival, I saw a Danish comedy from a few years later called Flimmer. That's about a small town where the electricity goes out at night and all of the town leaders are away at a gala. And it's really funny, a very similar kind of workplace comedy satire. I don't think it's ever been released formally in America, but if you ever get a chance to see it and you liked The Boss of It All, check out Flimmer.
Flimmer. All right.
Shout out Flimmer.
Shout out Flimmer.
It's a good one.
And the sequel, Flimmers.
Flimmer Man. Are we ready to rank?
Yeah, let's rank it. Does anybody have a theme song they want me to put in?
No.
All right.
You can't have a listing. You can't have a listing without a start. We're gonna be listing. Ranking Lars von Trier, Not in the Dark.
Yeah. Wow. Oh my God.
Holy shit.
Well done.
Thank you, Bruce. Right here in the studio.
Man, the boss. Yeah. Hell yeah.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
All right. You're going to go best to worst or worst to best?
Let's do worst to best. Number 4 for the von Triers we watched is Antichrist.
Whoa.
Number 4 for the von Triers we watched is The Dancer in the Dark.
For me, Boss of It All.
Whoa.
Oh.
Jack?
I actually, okay. I enjoyed watching Dancer in the Dark, even though I don't like it at all as a movie. And I think I kind of like Antichrist, even though I didn't enjoy watching it at all. Does that make sense?
It
I would
does.
probably.
Is it a tie?
I would.
I think Lars von Trier just got a mysterious hard-on.
Yeah. I guess I'd go Antichrist last, but it would be close.
Okay. Number 3, Dancer in the Dark, which I appreciate in theory as a creative endeavor, but I just don't really like it.
Number 3, Boss of It All, which after this conversation, these are to me, we're all 4 stars and above here. These are pretty great movies.
Fair enough.
Element of Crime.
Wow.
Number 3.
Element of Crime. Jack?
Wait, what did I say for number 4? Antichrist, right?
Yeah.
I guess I'll go
Yeah.
Dancer in the Dark.
For number 2, which I thought was going to be number 1, sometimes you go to the bathroom and you think, this is number 1, and then it turns out to be a number 2. Is Element of Crime, which I think is a freaking masterpiece. And like I said in the episode, one of the most influential movies to my creative outlook that I have ever seen.
Yeah.
I also have Element of Crime number 2, which I think is really amazing.
Yeah.
Most of the time.
Dancer in the Dark.
Jack, you want to rank us back into the Stone Age?
I also have Element of Crime, which I also thought was going to be number 1. Great white suit movie.
Boss of It All, number 1. I just thought it was one of the funniest movies I've seen in years, and one I wouldn't mind rewatching, like sometime even this year. Whereas Element of Crime is one of those every 10 years maybe type of movies.
Yeah.
Oh, fascinating. I love. I'm going to buy Element of Crime just so I can have it on in the background while I'm like working on other stuff.
Yeah.
I just love the mood. For me, Antichrist number 1 with the bullet. I don't enjoy watching it necessarily. I do. Well, the third of 4 acts, I do not enjoy watching. The other 3 acts I would watch most any day. And I think is one of the best films in the history of cinema.
Wow.
I wouldn't go that far, but Antichrist is my number 1.
I guess that leaves The Boss of It All as my number 1. Genuinely one of my favorite movies I think I've ever seen. So thank you, Thomas, for
Yeah. And what I enjoy
reason.
is that between me and the corals, I believe we have a complete inverted list.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah. That's
funny.
awesome.
So what I like about Von Trier, you guys apparently hate. But
Well, what's your favorite Von Trier overall? Is it Antichrist or is it one that we didn't cover?
it's probably 5 Obstructions. But
Okay.
Antichrist would be there. And I think these things move and they're fluid with time and as other things come out.
Melancholia, if you haven't seen it, Jack, gives you a lot of the thematic and aesthetic type of stuff from Antichrist without the it's surreal, but it's not a horror.
And it's slow.
It's not trying to be a normal horror movie.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, I guess
I've been wanting to check that one out, but this has definitely been great because I've been, I think, a little hesitant and avoidant to watch anything Lars von Trier. But now that I know that I kind of sort of like him sometimes, I'll definitely check out. The 5 Abstractions I've been wanting to watch. I've seen the original, the short film that it's based on quite a few times. The Perfect Human, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So with the 5 Obstructions,
Yeah, I'll be excited.
That's cut 5 different times or remade 5 different ways.
Huh.
I'll be excited to watch that one on your recommendation after the series as well, Thomas.
Yes.
I thought I had seen a bunch of Von Trier before we started, but I had actually only seen The Kingdom. I had actually only seen in full The Kingdom, Antichrist, and Melancholia. So I would have written off his middle career completely, evidently, if we hadn't done these.
Yeah, and apparently he made a sequel to The Kingdom a couple of years ago that we all talked about before we started recording.
Yeah, there's a Kingdom 3.
Yes.
I'm excited to it's promo images are given strong Twin Peaks season 3 vibes, and any creator who follows Lynch down that rabbit hole, I will go along for the ride.
I think it's a foxhole.
Yes, good point.
Or
good
a
point.
marmoset, or whatever it is.
Yeah, whatever that is.
And don't forget, everyone, it's pronounced Cannes Film Festival.
God damn it, noir. We're gonna go see some noirs in Cannes this weekend.
As we finish season 3, I wish. Season 13, man. Do we have any parting thoughts on these 4 directors?
I think they cover such a broad spectrum of both film history and contemporary cinema that just by happenstance, we all picked directors that gave us a great variety. And then if you watch any of them, you can get a sense of both film history and international film. It was great. I think we all did a great job.
Yeah. And to add to that, just building on the film history stuff, Jack's and Thomas's choices were both directors who are not deriving their style from classic Hollywood and American filmmaking, or even necessarily too much American indie filmmaking. It really gave us a great look at how different movies can be depending upon where you are in the world and why you're making them.
Yeah.
I was glad that I finally watched The Longest Yard, not the Sandler version. And I was really surprised by Aldrich's stylistic choices and his swings and misses. His biography is fascinating, and his career.
Robert Aldrich was my most watched director of 2024, according to Letterboxd.
Wow.
So I did a deep dive when we were covering him.
I want to see the whole. You should make a ranked list to send to me so I know where to go next.
Okay.
Make a smelly list.
Yes.
And then, with Willie, it was great to get to see Lee Grant again.
Yay. Yeah, that was great. Yeah, the 3 of the Big Willies, particularly Big Country.
It's a big country.
Yeah, Big Country
Yes,
was great.
Rewatching Desperate Hours, which I'd seen I think twice before we watched it, just solidified that it's one of my very favorite, most entertaining pictures.
Did I tell you I watched the remake?
The Mickey Rourke?
I
Not
flirted
Mickey
with
Rourke.
it. I saw it as a teenager. How bad was it? Pretty bad.
Well, I was sometimes I have movies on in the background when I'm editing the podcast, so I wasn't really paying attention. But it was pretty terrible.
Yeah.
And you were right there. The almost hilariously gratuitous nudity with what's her name, Kelly Lynch, where it's like doesn't make any sense. Like they're outside of a courthouse, and then for some reason he like grabs her arm and her chest pops out. It's the weirdest scene of nudity that was so unnecessary.
But that's how sex happens, I'm pretty sure.
Yes, on courthouse lawns every day in America. People's tops are popping open.
While bailiffs jump out of second-story windows to their death.
It's terrible, though. But the location work is kind of nice. It's pretty. Sometimes I would look up, like in the beginning, and they're at like a northern lake in Utah, and there's snow on the Cap Mountains. Like, oh, that's pretty. And
yeah, Cimino's films always.
Do you guys want to put any predictions about the UFOs out there that'll age poorly by the time this is out? Because Trump's going to reveal all that.
I think that they are part of a secret Pentagon program, probably run by Musk or Bezos' new security protection drones.
My theory is it's Lars von Trier in the future, where his consciousness has been downloaded into a supercomputer. He developed cameras that could go back in time, and it is a live stream comedy about how stupid fucking human nature was in 2025.
That sounds pretty good.
Yeah, I'd watch that.
Yeah,
I'd have it in the background as I'm scrolling through TikTok.
Scrolling through what?
Do you need that translated again, Jack?
But thank you guys for these directors. It was so much fun.
Yeah, this was awesome. And we're very excited for the next season, which is...
Well, it's kind of an in-between season. We're each doing a redux.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah, a couple movies that we rewatched that we've already covered.
So if you want to listen to another episode on movies that we've already covered for whatever reason...
Yes, but Ryan will be on them, and then for a couple of them, Jack will be on them.
For a couple of them?
Well, The Whale. You haven't seen The Whale.
That's
anyway,
right,
that's all in the future.
I've seen TikTok clips of The Whale. Can't wait.
Yeah.
For that and She-Double.
Yeah.
Did we lose you guys?
No, I think just the listener. So let's thank Weird AI for the theme song.
Yeah, you're welcome.
You know what? Can I add something to the Antichrist? And this could end this episode of Von Trier.
Whatever.
I read one of the people I follow on Letterboxd. They loved Antichrist and they've seen it a couple times. And I clicked on their review, and they said, I used to watch this movie when I was a teenager, certain scenes for quote unquote reasons, and never really watched it as a total movie.
What?
So I just want to leave you with the idea that somebody in the world is finding the explicitness in Antichrist jerk off material.
Not surprising. Shocking, but not
as long
surprising.
As they don't do it outside the courthouse. I don't care what they get up to.
All right. I don't know why I brought that up. That was last week. It's old shit. Don't bring up old shit, Ken.
That's why we're doing a whole season where we're bringing up old shit.
Yep.
Yeah, well done.
Stick around. Season 14, old shit.
All right, see you guys.
Destroy. Kill all hippies.
I don't hate it. I just don't know why you strayed from the formula.
You bastards.
You don't know it, Bob. I'm an artist. And I must reflect that in my rhyme.
I think Lars von Trier just got a mysterious hard-on somewhere in the world.
Eben Hijele. So Pixar ripped off the boss of it all. That's what you're saying.
Yeah. Rankin Lars von Trier, not in the dog.
And every day in America, people's tops are popping open.
Stick around. Season 14, old shit.